Hi, everybody. Welcome to T&M Coaching Unplugged podcast and Zoran Todorovic Interconnected. So grateful and happy to have you again on our podcast. And so grateful and happy for the people who are commenting, liking, sharing. We receive a lot of positive feedback, and it's always good to acknowledge people who come week after week to listen to our podcast and to learn, to grow, to accelerate, and to become the new best possible version of themselves. So I'm very grateful for our community. And today we're going to have a very interesting topic. We all are witnessing that the world is transforming and changing. You know, the political world, the governmental world, the business world, the world in total, it's in transformation. And when the world in total is in transformation, we always need to have powerful leaders stepping up. And we need to see not only powerful leaders stepping to lead businesses, stepping to lead governments, stepping to lead transformation of our world, we also need to see ourselves being activated in our leadership power to become a brave and authentic leaders that we all are. So instead of just waiting for leaders, which is always good because they inspire us, we also need to activate the leadership energy inside of ourselves. So today with my wonderful guest, Kate, we will be talking about authentic and brave leadership. We will be covering topics like authenticity, diversity, purpose. Why do we need to invest in people? How do we create culture when the brave and authentic leadership is received? How do we move away from the fear into the potential? We'll see, what transpires, but the overarching theme is you listening to this podcast, if you're a leader, to think about yourself and see how can you activate yourself to show up with bravery and authenticity. And if you're leading your life, your work, your business, your teams, how can you show up to be more of that as well, which is the quality of the leadership energy that is absolutely important for our world today. So Kate Matrunola, she had more than 20 years working in London in political and media relationships. She also had a powerful corporate communication position when she had a role in a global head of communication for one of the world's largest multinational organization. And then moving from her corporate job, she decided to pursue her new challenge in her life and become a professional coach. So nowadays, she is a professional coach, trainer, and facilitator. She holds a certification from the International Coaching Federation. She's specializing in leadership and professional development, and she loves working with executives, senior leaders, and their wider teams. She has a beautiful combination where she has this natural instinct to help and support and motivate people with decades of experience in her previous roles and also in problem solving, in managing team, in engaging team, in motivating employees, and also bringing this quality of leadership that we really want to see in today's world. And she's also co-founder of La Meta Coaching and also one of the affiliated coach with T&M Coaching. So, Kate, welcome.
Hi, Zoran. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Beautiful. I mean, this topic, when you and I were preparing, I loved it. It's such a juicy topic, brave, authentic leadership. So tell me a little bit about how did you come into this exploration of this topic to begin with? What led you to become passionate or driven to explore this bravery and authenticity in leadership?
So I think, as you said, Zoran, I'm really passionate about it because I've been there. I've experienced it. I was one of very few senior female execs in a multinational FTSE top 5. And I was thrust into a leadership position at a very young age. And I learned how to do it and how not to do it. And as some people say, I kind of got the t-shirt. I went through it. I went through the lows. I went through close burnout. And then I worked on myself to become the leader that I wanted to be and that I truly was. So I think so much of my passion working with my clients now, who are predominantly executive clients, CEOs, directors, management board members, I'm able to empathize with the situation they're in. I've navigated those complex political landscapes. I've worked with really big, large teams in different cultures across the world. And I get the mindset that's required in the decision-making processes. And I think the passion being about brave and authentic is I've seen so many people in my career, myself included, trying to be someone that they're not in order to succeed, trying to fit the mold and thinking that's what will make me successful. And ultimately, that only sets us up for failure.
So did you do the same thing in your position in previous job, that you were trying to be somebody that you were not as expression of your leadership energy, and who you're trying to be at that point in time?
Totally. And I think working in a male-dominated industry, I thought, okay, I've got to act like a man. I didn't dress like a man. No pinstripe suits for me. No cigar smoking. But I decided that I had to be like that. So I went in, and 6 months down the line, I was at burnout because I wasn't being authentic and true to myself. And it was that point that I realized I was at a crossroads and I had to make a change. So I did a lot of work on myself. And that's some of what I want to talk to you today about, is around my purpose, my core values, and my boundaries. And then I became the leader I wanted to be. And I absolutely loved my job.
And I love that we can expand on that, because sometimes when we share in podcasts, you need to work on yourself. This is such a big topic. People don't, they ask me the question, what do I need to do? So you said purpose, boundaries, and...
Yeah. Purpose, boundaries, core values.
Core values. So tell me, when you engaged in your own journey, or when you coach clients, we can expand it in that way, to look into, for example, purpose. What is the personal development work that is necessary for the purpose?
So when I look around their purpose, I say to them to really think to themselves, what are my core values? What am I prepared to accept and not accept? Where are my boundaries? What makes sense to me? What's good, what's bad, what's right, what's wrong? And to really, really dig deep into that. I ask them also to look at, what are the traits that I want to embody as a leader? How do I want people to see me and perceive me? What's my legacy? And to really visualize themselves as that ideal, perfect leader for them. And then when I look at the behaviors as well, what are the behaviors they want to emulate? So I do really large pieces of work with my clients around that. Huge bits, it's around self-awareness. If we don't understand ourselves, we're never going to understand others and how we react to others, how we work with others, and we're never going to grow. So that's the big piece of work I always start off with my clients, is digging very deep into that for them to gain a self-awareness.
Yeah, and because if we get self-aware, then we can really understand ourselves better, and then this inauthenticity can show up. I've done that work myself. For me, finding the values, what I really, really care about, like in my perspective, freedom, authenticity is one of my values, truthfulness. It was so important to dig deeper to understand them, because then I was able, in my own role as a leader, to express them a little bit more, and then live them, and then inspire and motivate people, because we all love people who are authentic, right? We recognize this authenticity, and I think this is linked to the values expression. Would you agree?
Totally. And we're all human, and we have to remember that. We're not just reading a job description and dressing up and doing this job. We're working in these jobs, spending time with people. Most of our time is spent there. It's not with friends and family, it's in our roles. And yet I always refer to it as that North Star. So it's in times of crisis, when you're panicked and you feel like everything's out of control, that is your North Star that will keep you on track, keep you calm in the crisis, and make you that leader that will lead your team through difficult times, even when you may be suffering.
And you also mentioned the boundaries is something important that you worked on, that you inspired leaders to work with, to be able to reach that level of authenticity and bravery. So can you comment a little bit more about what about boundaries? Why are they important? How do we set them up? And what is the role in boundaries in leadership?
I think with boundaries, and that was a key one for me, is understanding them so that you know when they've been crossed. Because only you will know when they've been crossed, and only you can then make that decision or that change. So for me, my boundaries were a lot around self-care, around my work-life balance, around when that was tipping. And the importance of saying no was a really large one that came up for me. When do I need to say no? And what does that look like? And this comes up with my clients all the time, men and women. And I taught myself how to say no. I think stereotypically, and I say stereotypically, as women, we tend to want to be praised, to say yes to everything, to make sure we're doing a good job. And ultimately, if you don't have the capacity for that at a present moment in time, only you will lose out. So I learned to use phrases like, I would love to be involved in that project. It sounds really interesting. However, I haven't got the capacity for right now, but let me get back to you in a few weeks and see where I am.
I love that language. I want everybody to bookmark this. It's listening because it's such a good language, because it's truthful, it's honest, and it's actually what's going on. That you would love to be part of it, but you don't have capacity at this moment in time. So let's see if it's possibility later on in your life. Really,
exactly. And also, I think we think of the word no as this very hard, negative word, and actually we can use it in a different way. Exactly, if we use the language. So, I've been given Friday. I'm really not going to be able to make that Friday deadline, I'm afraid. I'm maxed out right now. However, would Monday by close of play work?
There you go. Really beautiful, clean language.
And another thing I learned on that, actually, Zora, was 3 things. It's making a list of 3 things that if your boundary is crossed once, you make a note. It's happened once. So the warning alarm has started. It's very slight, it's ringing in the back of your mind. If it's crossed a second time, you make a note of it, and that warning light is getting stronger and that siren is getting louder. And really then you're starting to think to yourself, is this the right organization for me? Do the values of this organization meet mine? Again, back to your North Star of your purpose. And really, by the time you get to number 3, you're ready to say, this isn't right for me.
And I think this is such a beautiful skill, not only in the leadership, the organization, but in life. You can do the same thing in any relationship, right? So when the relationship happens, you can understand it. Sometimes people get confused to how to recognize when somebody has crossed their boundary. What would you say on that? So, what is the feeling, the sensation if people are crossing your boundary, and how do you know? How do we know?
So again, it's completely unique to the individual, and the work we do at the beginning around self-awareness is that recognize those feelings, recognize them. Don't just put them as stress or as this is a crisis and it'll pass and I'll move on. Listen to your gut, listen to the feelings, look at what your body's doing, look at how it's reacting to that stress. You have to be self-aware of that and feel that. And I got to really recognize that within my career as a leader, so that when those feelings came up, I would say to myself, I know what this feeling is, and I know it's because my boundary is being crossed. Now, I am the only person who is accountable for making this change is me. So accountability is a huge piece of self-awareness and important as a leader.
Exactly. And then when you move this accountability to yourself, then you're in ownership. Because what we tend to do, especially with the boundaries, we tend to project back and blame, right? So it's not about me, it's about somebody else. I'm good, somebody else is bad. They don't understand me. And what I love is this language of accountability, that you are the one who can shift the situation based on your self-awareness, right? And you can say, okay, boundaries are crossed now. I need to reinforce my boundaries. I need to communicate them clearly. I need to make sure that people understand that. And then you are in the power position. Basically, you're driving instead of being victimized by organization, by situation, by boss, or whatever happens within the organizational dynamic.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Great. So I love this conversation about boundaries, because I think this is an essential piece that helps us to become more authentic, because when we have solid boundaries, right, we can be more congruent in ourselves. And if we're not congruent ourselves, we're not leaking energy, leaking resources, leaking thoughts, leaking energy, so to say, and then we lose our authenticity. So let's go back into this authenticity and bravery. So for you, if you were to define for our audience, what do you believe are qualities of authentic leaders? So what is that for you when you see somebody and you would say, well, that person is really authentic, in their self-expression? How would you define that?
I think at its basic form, you feel comfortable around that person. You believe that person. And if you're working for them, you want to work for them. You want to do a good job for them because you can see that they are being honest with you. And I think so many times, especially in large corporates, but this applies to anywhere, leaders feel they have to toe the party line. And don't get me wrong, we do have to toe the party line at times. There's information that we can't divulge, but it's about communicating clearly to your teams from your heart. When difficult decisions need to be made, it's about doing it fairly, but firmly, and being yourself. Because if we try to mask that, people will see through it. And then teams become panicked, teams don't believe in their leader, or teams just don't want to work for them. So what I say to so many of my clients is, this is about business results. I get so many of my clients saying, but we need to get the teams working more effectively. And I'm like, this will help. If you want to see money and pound signs at the end of the bottom line, this will help.
Yeah, it's an essential point, right? It's something that needs to happen as a prerequisite for the results to be driven. So honesty, transparency, there is people believe in you, and there is a natural state of loyalty, as I understand. People want to be loyal because you are treating them with honesty, respect, and honest to yourself. And then somehow we're navigating the political game because, I'm hearing some of the leaders that I coach in my mind, they're saying, okay, Zoran, yes, this sounds so well, but what about the politics? What about the complexity of the organization? How can I be true to myself? How can I be authentic and honest, but I cannot, no. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how do we manage that complexity that you managed when you were in your high corporate job in the past, right? That is still real, it's still reality, and then maintain this authenticity? I know this is a different question. Let's just try to address
it. Let's go with it. So I think there's one big bit I'd say before I answer that, which is going back to that self-awareness piece. If the politics or the pressure or what's being tated from above really jars with who you are as a person, that is the time, that's the boundary to start questioning whether the values and the culture of the organization matches who you are. So that's that first piece. And we will know when that happens. But in the meantime, if the culture does, it's just difficult. We've got complex stakeholders. We've got different opinions. One thing I really learned, so this is slightly off-piste a little bit, is I know myself. So going back to I know myself, I know my purpose, I know what I want to achieve, is fun, is the word fun. I started to have a bit of fun with it. I zoomed out, which we do with our clients all the time, and I looked down on it and I went, this is just a job in a company. We all dress up and we come into work. It's fun. Have some fun. See it for what it is. We're just people all working together. So for me, that was a really key thing as a leader, to kind of watch, then stand back, watch people's behaviors, watch them reacting, stressing, dictating, and saying, this is how they're reacting. I can control how I react to this. Only I can control that. So I think there's a really lovely piece around that, and around saying there's a job to be done. I will take this direction. I won't let it take over who I am. I won't let it stress me out. I won't let it push me to my burnout. I'm clear on that. But I also have a team to lead below me, and I am responsible for that team. And I love that team and I respect that team. So a certain amount of this noise that we're looking at going, it's just people running around and, being who they want to be. Part of my role is to protect my team and to lead my team, and the analogy of the captain of the ship. Mm-hmm. I'm the captain of the ship. I cannot let go of that wheel. I have to be calm in a crisis. My responsibility. No one else is.
Absolutely. I love that you brought the element of fun because, one of my colleagues in TNM, Vivian Vadamato, she always says to leaders, if you are not having fun, you're not doing it right. And I love that sentence that she uses all the time, especially in the workshops when the situation gets so serious, because we tend to get serious about this. I also use the analogy similar to you when it comes to zooming out of it. that I begin getting people into the Netflix of their life, because Netflix is so popular nowadays. Everybody watches season 1, 2, 3 and episodes. And I said, okay, let's look into the Netflix of your life.
Love that.
If you were to be a character in that season 1, what is the season 2 about? What is season 3 about? What is this episode about? So that we have a little bit of detachment, because something in our human nature gets us to become too serious about everything, especially in a professional context. When we are at work, we get like, whoa, now we have to be super serious. So that element of lightness and fun that you're bringing as the vehicle for authenticity that will dissolve this complexity that we talked about, that leader will complain about. They would say, yes, Kate, we know we need to be like that, but what about all of this? Our take on that is see it for what it is, observe it, relate to it from the fun point of view, see it as a Netflix, see it as a play, see it as a characters coming together. It's not that serious, right? And then we can loosen up a little bit more in ourselves.
Definitely. And I think also in that is creating a really safe space for yourself and for your team. So important is that safe space where members of your team can come. They can go and see a senior stakeholder, be treated in, whatever way that stakeholder chooses to behave. We can't change their behaviors, but we can control how we react. They can come back to the safe space within the team, let it out, and then laugh about it and move forwards. And obviously there is a very clear point. If boundaries are crossed in terms of appropriate behavior or bullying or harassment, that's very, very different. And as a leader, again, we have to step in those situations if it's happening to ourselves or to members of our team.
So when you stepping up, holding the responsibility for your team, being the captain of the ship, and you said, it's my responsibility, it gets us into the conversation around bravery, because authenticity, I think a lot of us understand, and a lot of listeners understand what does it mean to be fully authentic, aligned to your purpose, aligned to your values, having strong boundaries, being able to be light and fun, being able to create the energy in the atmosphere around you and people feel themselves because you are yourself. And as you said beautifully, that creates loyalty, connection, productivity, profitability. And that's the glue, right? It's not money. This is the most important thing. And then the money or the performance happens as an outcome of that connection, correct? So this is, I think, a lot of people do understand it. And I hope you do understand this because it's super important. But let's move into the bravery, because it kind of goes hand in hand. And this is something that we talked about to start with. So how is that bravery linked to this authenticity? And why do you feel this quality of bravery in leadership? It's super important for leaders nowadays.
So I think so often, as we touched on at the start, when we go into leadership positions, we feel we have to fit the mold. And it's about being brave at saying we don't necessarily have to do that. It's brave to push yourself out of your comfort zone. It's a brave thing to do because it's very easy to just fit the mold, put your heads down, and be like the leaders around you. I think a lot of that comes to diversity, building diverse teams. It takes bravery, especially those around you are going, just employ people who look like you, sound like you, think like you. It's the easy thing to do. But brave leaders are thinking about the future of their organization, building their future teams, not just a replication of the past. And the forward-thinking organizations, or the progressive organizations I'm working with and clients within them, understand that. So when it comes to building a diverse team, we have to be prepared for different perspectives and to be challenged by people in that team. And that takes bravery, because when you're that leader thinking, well, I know exactly how it needs to be, I just need my team to do it. And you build the diverse team, which is the right thing, they will have very different perspectives, very different character traits, very different ways of dealing with things. And that can be challenging. But I truly have always been passionate about my teams were always diverse. And if we're building diverse teams from different backgrounds, cultures, religions, genders, sexual orientations, ages, we are getting totally different life experiences, totally different perspectives. And that is for the greater good of the organization, the greater good of innovation, of different thoughts and different processes that will propel organizations forwards.
I love, Kate, how you weaving in the diversity with bravery, because I think it is brave thing. You know, I remember at the beginning of my career, I was actually employing what I would say my clones.
Yeah.
People that I resonated with, you know, that I like, as well as people that I thought, okay, you know, this he or she can be part of my team. We are so similar. We share the same values. And I thought we could work well together. And that was, you know, challenging. And then getting into the diversity later on in my career would really help me open up my eyes into the bravery of being able to be with people who would challenge the perspective, challenge the belief, you know, challenge everything that I would think that it's the right way forward and bring something new and new and unique. So I think that you're absolutely right there, that the more we diversify, we become, the braver we need to be, right, as a leaders, to include all of that.
Definitely. And as you said, I mentioned to you, I was running a team leadership event earlier in the week, and we looked at all the different traits within the team and their personality profiles. And it's fascinating to see that there are strengths and weaknesses in all of us, and that we need to work together and understand each other. But yeah, it's, you know, that bravery piece. It's brave to pick someone different that will challenge you. And I think there's a bravery piece around culture as well. I think you have to be very brave to create your own unique culture that works for you and your team, even if it's different to the rest of the organization.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a lot more work. It takes a lot more time, but the results pay off. You're happier, your teams are happier, and everything you beautifully described about the loyalty, and then ultimately your team working better, being happier and performing better.
So what are the examples of authentic, brave cultures? You know, so when you work with the teams, or for yourself in the past, you know, there's somebody who is brave enough and to say, well, for my team, this is the culture that I would love to create. What are the elements of that culture traits that we would love people to consider to develop themselves?
So I think within that, you need the balance. So that's clear straight away. We need the assertive characters. We need the turbulent characters. We need the judging characters and the prospecting characters. We need a mix. So that's the start. But I think coming back to the values, it's working with your team on them as well. You can't sit and create them yourself. And that's the key. What makes us happy? What challenges us? What are we not comfortable with? All of these questions that we use in our coaching to really understand, again, where a team's boundaries are, what that culture needs to look like. There's a large piece around work-life balance as well. And this, I'm sure you've seen this very much with clients now, especially in the corporate world, that jarring of what the organization says is the policy, but you as a leader thinking, but I want to treat my teams well, and I want them to have flexibility. And actually, in my own personal experience, I went against the mold. I went against HR, who said, this is the policy. I went against the chief exec, who said, no one must work from home. Nobody can have that flexibility. And it didn't match my views. I didn't believe that as a leader. And at the start, I took accountability for that. So it didn't matter where my team were. I knew where my team were. I knew my team were performing. So it came to me, if there are any problems, you come back to me. I'm your leader. I will deal with the negative voices. I will make this work. And they worked so hard for me and trusted me and were so loyal because I sought to understand them, and they delivered. And so that's a very big piece when we're looking at culture within our teams. And again, being brave to say, I will challenge the norm. I can do that. It's my role as a leader. Exactly.
And also the new distinction that I really like is this distinction between how do we relate to people in our teams. Is it human resources or is it human beings? When it comes to resources, there is always this transactional element that the resource will complete this and this task, and I have resource allocated to that task. It's very rigid language, right? But when you begin looking into the human beings in your team, as you said, Kate, what they need, how can I get to know them? How can I get to be closer to them as human beings? How can I get to facilitate their work life in a way that really suits them? In that case, hybrid working or working from home, having the small family, taking care of old parents. It doesn't matter what the complexity of their life is, but you're catering to enable the work life to be part of that. People love that. And this is an invitation for you leaders who are listening specifically to this, because we can get entrapped in the processes and procedures within the organization. We need to follow what HR or what its chief executive officer says, but there is a level that we need to stand up and do the right thing that we know it's right for ourselves and our teams, right? Even if it creates friction, correct?
Exactly that. And it's tough at times. And there are times when you know you have to stand back or you have to fix things. And there are times when you have to explain to your team as a leader, I've tried, however, this is where we are, but I will support you as best I can and we will make it work. And I think, Zoran, this comes back to something I wanted to speak about a little bit today, is that I talk to clients a lot about, is this visualization of a compass and not a map. And I get into these sort of sea analogies I keep coming up with. But when I talk about, the map is the to-do list. So the leader comes in and says, okay, we need to do this, 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 and this. These are our objectives. Let's go. But the compass is the vision. It's the goal on the horizon. And it's our job to take people with us, to communicate that so clearly and to keep them focused on that vision. And that's a lot of work I do with executives, because quite often they've come from COO roles into CEO roles. And I'm saying, you're not a COO anymore. What made you great isn't going to make you the leader. The leader has the vision, the strategy, and the culture, and that belongs to you and no one else. You are responsible for that. So I love that piece around the compass. And again, it comes back to our purposes within that. It's our North Star. That will keep us going.
Yeah, super important, especially nowadays, as I said at the beginning of my podcast, when the world is so complex. It looks like we're living in a more complicated world that we haven't lived before. So for that, it's extremely important that we know, we in ourselves as a leader, because then we can reassure people, we can give them confidence, we can give them direction, and it's easier to relax with uncertainty and ambiguity that we're all experiencing right now. Great conversation, Kate. We're coming to the wrap right now. You and I can talk for hours, but we want to be respectful of people, especially the ones who are, commuting or listening in the car as focusedly. So where would you like to leave audience with? Anything that you think it's a good call for action, when it comes to the being brave, being authentic? We covered a lot of topics that we can unpack, but anything that stood up for you that you think it's important for people who are listening to this podcast to engage, to practice, to try out, to consider, to think about, what would be a call for action?
I think it really comes down to self-belief and knowing your purpose. For me, that is the absolute fundamental element and the core. And that allows us to be the best leaders we can possibly be. If we know who we are inside and we know our purpose and we have what we've described as that North Star, that will guide us through difficult times. And that self-belief within that, and the work, like we said, the work has to go in. You have to look at this. It's not a 5-minute job on the way into work. You have to dig into it, but it will get you through tough times. There will always be challenges. There will always be times when we think we can't do it. And coming back to that piece of work and that purpose will give you the self-belief to continue to go forwards. And ultimately, it is our responsibility as leaders to stay calm in that crisis. So we need to do the work on ourselves to help our teams through those difficult times. It benefits us, it benefits them, it benefits the organization.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kate. You can find Kate in the social media that we're going to reference in this podcast, as well, on her website also, and TNM website as well. If you want to engage and work with Kate, you're more than welcome. There is a wisdom and practical experience and knowledge that Kate brings to the place, and beautiful, authentic coaching as well. So, Kate, thank you so much for coming to this conversation today. We're super grateful. I really love this topic, and I cannot get enough of it, because I think once when we all become authentic and brave ourselves in our life and in our work, the world will transform definitely, because we will take full responsibility in a beautiful and light way, not as a heavy burden way, but in beautiful and light way. And I hope you got some of the tools and the skills that you needed today to be able to start cultivating the authenticity and bravery in your leadership life and in your life in general. So once again, thank you, Kate, for coming. Lovely to have you on this podcast.
Thank you for having me, Zoran.
And for everybody else, keep on tuning in to TNM Unplugged and Zoran Todorovic Interconnected. Week after week, we produce lovely podcasts to elevate your mind, heart, and soul to the next level, and to help you to become this new best possible version of yourself. And we're consistently growing and evolving. And bye for now. Lots of love to everybody, and we'll talk soon again.